Good evening. Call to order tonight's meeting for the Revere City Council, Monday, January 13th, 2020. Sorry. Yeah, 2020, huh? Doesn't that sound weird? We'll all rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, call a roll.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Janino.
Here.
Here. Councilor Guanasso.
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna.
Here.
Here. Councilor Morabito.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky.
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers.
Here.
Here. Councilor Rotundo.
Present.
Here. Councilor Sereno.
Here.
Here. Councilor Visconti. Here. Councilor Zambuto.
Here.
Here. And Council President Keefe.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get this meeting started tonight, I wanted to offer, the Revere City Council would like to offer the condolences to the Caffarelli family. Margaret Peggy Caffarelli passed this past week. Her services were yesterday and today. And she is the mother of former Chief Caffarelli, Joe Caffarelli, mother of John Caffarelli, and of course, who's also in the Revere Police Department, and Laura Caffarelli, all upstanding Revere residents and spouse of late George Caffarelli, who also served on the police force, and we wanted to offer our condolences. We'll take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. And then one other point of personal privilege. I wanted to welcome two new city councilors to the council chambers tonight, which has been so beautifully decorated by our city officials. And we have Councilor Ricky Sereno and Councilor Jerry Visconti. Welcome to the chambers. I know each of you would like to say a brief word.
Mr. President, as one of the newest members of the council, I'd like to say thank you to my family, my friends, but most important, the citizens of Revere that elected me to the seat. I'd like to say thank you also to my colleagues since being elected to the seat, the warm welcome you've given me, and I appreciate that. I'm truly humbled. I'm truly honored and excited for being here, and look forward to working with all of you to move this city forward. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Sereno.
Mr. President, through you to the members of the council and to the residents of Ward 6. The first time I walked into this chamber, I was 9 years old. I never imagined on that day nearly 20 years ago that I would be in one of these seats as a member. It's the greatest honor of my life up to this point to be sitting here. I want to express my profound gratitude to the people of West Revere and North Revere for the confidence that they have placed in me, and I want them to know that when I speak on an issue or take a vote in this chamber, the best interest for all of us in Ward 6 will be at the forefront of my mind. I also want to express my appreciation and thanks to the important people in my life who have supported me over the years. From my parents, Gina and Rick, to my grandparents and my entire family who made me the man I am today. To my mentors, Representative Rosalie Vincent, former Representative Kathy Ann Ryanstein, and Speaker Bob DeLeo, who have shaped me into the elected official I hope to be, and to my supporters who have believed in me from day one of my candidacy, especially the late Bobby Picardi. Finally, fellow members of the council, I want to express how excited I am to work with all of you, Mayor Arrigo, and the employees of the various departments in the city on issues like solving flooding problems in Ward 6, addressing traffic concerns, and bringing responsible economic development that strengthens our commercial tax base in our community. I'm eager to get started, and I look forward to a productive 2 years making Revere the best city it can possibly be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sereno. Madam Clerk.
Calendar item number 2, approval of the journal of the regular meeting of January 6, 2020.
So move. Order accepted.
Calendar item number 3, 2020 City Council Subcommittee assignments.
All in favor? Order received. Place on file.
Calendar item number 4 is unfinished business. This is the introduction of the City Council Rules of Order.
Motion to approve? All in favor?
Motions, calendar item number 5, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the state or federal government to dredge the Town Line Brook, thus increasing the retention of capacity in the lower Washington Avenue area.
Councilor Rotundo.
I think this is pretty straightforward. This is something that would help increase the water retention in the area in the event of flooding. It hasn't been done in probably well over 3 decades. And having spoken to a member of the Army Corps of Engineers, I'm told that this would help a lot with the flooding that happens along Washington Ave and the streets in that area. So hopefully we can get something done. More importantly, it would also affect the people in Malden and Everett as well. So I think perhaps maybe a letter to their bodies might be helpful to get their support too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. And Councilor Sereno.
I echo and I thank Councilor Rotundo for filing this motion, and I look forward to working with him on it. As he said, this is a kind of needs a coordinated approach because it does straddle Malden and Everett. To that end, I've spoken with Mayor Rigo, and this is something that I've been talking about for a while, and I feel that needs to be done. And we are actually in the process of setting up a meeting with officials from Malden. And Councilor Rotundo, I do invite you and hope that you'll participate in that. We'd love to have your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors? Great. Motion to approve. Approved.
Calendar item number 6, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the state to look into the feasibility of hydroelectric water turbines at the Town Line Brook.
Councilor Rotundo.
So in that same area where you traverse the Washington Ave into basically the area of critical concern that goes into the marshland, there's always a tow and there's always a current. I was watching a program where they were doing it up in Canada, and they were able to drive a lot of energy. So if they're going to clean it, at least think about that too.
Any councilors? All in favor? Thank you.
Calendar item number 7, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the head of preparedness in the city to look into the feasibility of an antenna mesh system or similar system in the event of hurricane or other natural or other event which could disable communications.
Councilor Rotundo.
What this system does is allow our officials, in the event that even if a satellite went down, where they cannot use their satellite phones, they would be able to communicate with each other using this system. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. I agree, especially we're seeing some drastic weather that's been hitting the area and obviously the entire world over the last few years. We're seeing so many extremes. This could be something that's beneficial. Motion to approve. All in favor?
Calendar item number 8, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request the police department to install a solar-powered speed reader between 651 and 951 Winthrop Avenue. Cars race up the street after the stop sign, making it dangerous for pedestrians and children.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President, and congratulations on your new position. We have a problem because we have Winthrop residents cutting through Winthrop Ave and Crescent Ave, and cars are speeding up the street. I'm asking the mayor if he would put a solar-powered speed reader from 651 to 951 on Winthrop Ave to slow the traffic down. Thank you. It's only one direction. Winthrop Ave's a one-way, so it'd be going from the corner to almost near the beach. Thank you.
I believe that's eastbound. Correct.
It's eastbound.
Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I certainly will support this motion, seeing it's so much into public safety. But I'd also like to bring up at this point, I had put in a similar motion probably 6 months ago for 1A North Shore Road. I don't think there's any more highway in this city that's any more dangerous than one. We've had cars go in the water down there due to speeding. We've had at least in the past several years 3 fatalities down there. We had one on John Avenue, we had one on Oak Island, we had another one. The intersection Revere Street and North Shore Road. Car went into a young boy's bedroom there. I mean, I don't think there's any more important place in the city to address. They're all important, don't get me wrong, but I think this here needs to be done ASAP. We need traffic signalization down there, and Ballard Street in Saugus is nowhere as near as impacted as 1A and North Shore Road. They have 2 over there, one coming in and one going out. And I think the other thing we need down there is more enforcement. We just can't leave these places go unchecked until the next fatality happens down there. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Motion to approve. All in favor?
Calendar item number 9, motion presented by Councilor McKenna that the mayor request DCR to replace the faded no parking signage on Winthrop Parkway. There is no parking on both sides, and due to the faded signs, vehicles park on both sides of the street, which is not allowed.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's starting to be a big problem on Winthrop Parkway because we have signs, and I have no jurisdiction. It's DCR run. So the no parking signs are faded, and people are starting to park on the streets, and there's a lot of traffic going in and out of Beachmont from Winthrop, from Revere to Winthrop. So I'm just asking if the signs will be replaced and there will be no parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McKenna. Any other councilors? Councilor, I would agree as well. Is there's a number of signs obviously throughout the city. I think that we're going to be doing a pretty big overhaul on the signage with the eventual new parking program. But we have to uphold. We have to have the state uphold their signage as well. So I appreciate that, and we look forward to this motion being approved. All in favor? Thank you.
Calendar item number 10, motion presented by Councilor McKenna that the City Council request a Verizon representative to appear before the City Council to explain why old telephone wires are still hanging and wrapped around utility poles throughout the city. This has been an ongoing issue since July, and Verizon has not been responsive.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. So nothing has been fixed since the last time I put in this motion. I did talk to Infinity, Comcast, and they fixed what they had with their wires, but he told me that most of the wires are Verizon. And every time we try to get a representative up here to speak about this, they never show up. They have a snowstorm, or they have an emergency or a windstorm. So I would like to have a representative come up, and I'd like this to be fixed because it's all over the city, but in Beachmont, it's the worst. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to request that the city clerk send a directive to the person over at Verizon that's responsible for coming before this city council and explaining why some of these problems have not been addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. We also have a man in the audience.
Eric
Name and
Lampedecchio.
address for the record.
Eric Lampedecchio, 43 Tapley Avenue. I would just ask that the city take a look at the 311 tickets that have been submitted related to this issue. I think that'll give you some firepower when they come to the meeting. I know that personally I've submitted several tickets, and the wires are still wrapped around like a candy cane, so hopefully we can get this resolved.
Thank you. Good evening, Rocco.
I should have known that. Rocco Falzoni, 55 Toscano Ave, Revere, Massachusetts. I can elaborate one thing with Council McKenna, what you just said. For a year and a half, 2 years, I've been coming up here. National Grid, Verizon always pops up. Being a spectator, listening to the stories, what's going on. Going on 5 years, 6 years, same story after all these years. So I think if I can give my voice of opinion would be, you get the wrong people coming up here, the wrong representative. Instead of going with the people out in the street or all the other characters that come up here, you have to go right for the gusto. Get the main men up here, and I'm sure that something might happen if you get the right people up here. So for the 5 years it's been going on, you got the wrong people coming up. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. Just one more thing. I want to congratulate you and everybody up here. Thank you for being you guys, and congratulate all of you. But there's one more thing I want to say. after 2 years, finally, Asti, Toscano, the flooding has been recognized by Councilor Rotundo. Thank you, sir. Councilor Rotundo, Ricky Sorino, I'm sure that will be something being done now for that area. So I want to congratulate everybody. Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Falzone.
You're
Those
welcome.
kind words. And, yes, Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. That sounds good, doesn't it, Mr. President? I think I said this at the end of our last session, but, and I will follow this with a motion that we need to address the new cable company that is cutting these wires. A lot of these are cable wires that have been cut and replaced with the new cable company. So we've got to hold them responsible for what they do. And so I'll follow this up with a more detailed motion, but it's not just Verizon. But and Verizon is responsible for the poles, and with all due respect to my good friend Rocco, the Verizon representative we have here is the area vice president. You don't get much higher than Stan Yukovich. So I think he's responsive. I think that part of this is who really owns these wires, and there's a problem here. So we'll get to the bottom of it, but I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you,
Point
Mr.
of
President.
information.
State your point.
Can we amend, put this as, have Verizon and RCN come up, representatives together
Yep.
and
I
nip
was
it
gonna
in the
agree.
bud? Yeah, thank
That's
you.
exactly what I was going to say. Councilor Guanasso?
That's exactly what I was going to say. I wanted to amend the motion
Point of-
to invite RCN up also.
Point of information.
Councilor Rotundo?
You know, I think that all makes great sense. I think what we need to do is get the mayor to get these people, he's the one who signs their contract, and he needs to get them to sit down and speak to him and get this done. We can come up here and we can, belittle them all we want, and we can tell them we're not going to give them a pole or a wire distribution, what have you. At the end of the day, it's the mayor who signs the contract. It's the mayor who's going to be able to enforce the contract. We need to communicate this with him and, work together on this.
Good point. All in favor?
Calendar item number 11, motion presented by Councilors Serino and Keefe, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to study the intersection of Washington Avenue and Mountain Avenue to determine the feasibility of either a three-way stop at this intersection or a similar course of action which would enable vehicles to safely turn on and off Mountain Avenue. Further, that speed limit signs be posted at the intersection of Amasa and Mountain Avenue to alert drivers to the speed limit. Residents who live at the intersection report that due to vehicles speeding up and down Mountain Avenue, there tends to be accidents at this location. Residents also report that traffic backs up due to the fact that vehicles traversing Washington Avenue do not let anyone turn off of Mountain Ave. Additionally, that the Traffic Commission look at the feasibility of installing a crosswalk at this intersection for people to safely cross Washington Ave.
Thank you, Councilor Serino.
I think it pretty much speaks for itself. I'll save my comments for the Traffic Commission meeting, but I do think this intersection really does need to be looked at.
Councilor Rotundo?
On that same vein, perhaps down on Amasa Ave, where they do a lot of dumping, we can probably put a remote camera down there if that's possible. I mean, I know they do it up at McLeavy Way and so forth, but Amasa gets hit all the time, so just something to think about.
Council, that's a good point. And I think we have requested cameras in the past, but it'd be good to get a refreshed question to that, because there's a lot of dumping in that area, and it could help solve a lot of issues. But great motion by you, Councilor Serino, and motion to approve.
Calendar item number 12, motion presented by Councilor Serino, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to study the intersection of Linehurst Road and Agatha Street to determine the feasibility of replacing the do not enter sign that previously faced easterly towards the North Revere neighborhood. In recent years, heavy vehicles making deliveries to the plaza on Bennett Highway exit through the North Revere neighborhood instead of via Route 1, causing dangerous conditions for those who live in the neighborhood.
Councilor Serino.
So again, I think it pretty much speaks for itself, but I will say, I'll save my comments for the Traffic Commission meeting. But a woman who lives up there, she was coming out of her driveway one morning and she nearly got hit, T-boned, because a heavy vehicle and on a otherwise quiet street was coming down. So again, I think the Traffic Commission should look at this. Apparently, the sign used to be there years ago. It's since disappeared, but if we could get it back, I know the residents up there would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And with that, if there was a already installed sign, it would just need to be replaced, so that would be something that could be easily done. All in favor? Motion approved.
Calendar item number 13, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor request the fire department and DPW to conduct a public safety test on Bellingham Ave for the purpose of checking safe passage of fire apparatus and snowplows due to the enforcement of ADA regulations, preventing the parking of vehicles on sidewalks.
Counselor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of weeks ago, the residents of Bellingham Ave got warnings that they couldn't park on the sidewalk anymore. They've been doing that for years. But because of the new ADA regulations, no one in the city can no longer park on the sidewalk. So I went down there the other day, and it's very narrow. And so I want to make sure that a fire apparatus, if there's an emergency, can get down there, and also a snowplow. I'm going to call Ralph DeCicco, he's the Director of Disabilities, to come up and explain the ADA regulations that are now enforced in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor McKenna. Mr. DeCicco.
Ralph DeCicco, American Legion Building, Commission on Disabilities. Just one clarification, they're not new ADA regulations. They've been in existence for a while. What it is way back when, there was 6 streets in Revere that were on the books for parking on sidewalks, but in 2004, they were supposed to be removed from the books, and they were not. And then in 2017, I can get the exact dates, they were brought up again to be removed from the books, the 6 streets. And it took some time, but they were removed. It's not a Revere law, it's a Mass General law and an ADA law. So it's not true to Revere for no parking on sidewalks. A lot of people think that the curbing is part of the street. Curbing is considered the sidewalk, and it is no vehicles, no 2 wheels, no nothing is allowed on a sidewalk at all. It's the complete right-of-way. It is an ADA violation through the federal government and the state, and it's Mass General Law 90-20A and a half. It's also 720 CMR 9.04. Not only can cities and towns, not only are cities and towns supposed to be ticketing, but they are also could be towing those vehicles. It's at the discretion of the cities and towns to do the towing. Anybody can look if they think it's a Revere thing, please visit the City of Boston's website. It's right on their front page. That says right on their front page that parking is not allowed on their sidewalks. So when I get it all the time for people saying what parking is permitted on the sidewalks. It's not. It should have never been on the books years ago for the 6 streets. So I don't know how that ever came about. But when people say that this is a Revere law, it is not a Revere law. It is a statute from the state of Massachusetts, which is also an ADA law. And I can give you that clarification also. The ADA is also part of, it's also part of MGL Section 40, Section 21, which is also another part of it. And it also falls under another criteria of the ADA. And along with sidewalk parking, there are also criteria that you're only supposed to be parking so far within a crosswalk. I see that that's coming up later on. It's 10 feet within a crosswalk that you're not supposed to be parking on. So I wanted to give some clarification, and I do have all the documentations on that. And also parking at the extending of your driveway out of your parking driveway onto the sidewalk is also considered a violation for being parking onto the sidewalk, which can be ticketed and towed if your car is protruding anyway onto a sidewalk. So if your bumper is extending onto the sidewalk, that is considered a violation. Luckily, we haven't gotten any people from the ADA coming down on Revere yet, but we do need to do our due diligence, because if somebody does file anything, it's going to fall back on the city of Revere for not doing their due diligence to following the state mass laws along with the ADA laws. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns. That's why I
Ralph,
came up.
excuse me. Can you just explain to the audience what the ADA law is? Because everybody's hearing about this ADA law, but no one knows really what it is, and I have to explain it to them. So can you just explain it to the audience?
Well, ADA law, a sidewalk is a sidewalk, and the sidewalk has to be passable. The sidewalk is supposed to be 42 inches, 36 inches of it has to be passable from the curb to the end of it, if there's a sidewalk there. And if there is not, some of the streets don't have a true sidewalk, but there is still a sidewalk, even though it's hot top. So I know a lot of cities and towns are trying to come up with a resolution to that fact, as Revere does have a lot of the streets that don't have a true sidewalk. A couple of the committees that I'm involved with other cities and towns, we're trying to get a determination on what can be done because of the ADA violations, so that cities and towns don't get any fines for that, and what we can do for clarification. But the ADA laws is the sidewalk is it's not only for disabled residents that are affected on it, but they're the ones that have the strong standpoint on it. Wheelchairs need to be able to get down it, people with walkers, canes and whatnot. So vehicles are not supposed to be on it, even for temporarily, for waiting or whatnot, same as a handicapped spot. And that's my pet peeve. There's tons of people that are sitting in a handicapped spot saying that they're waiting for someone. That is also against the law. So don't put yourself in somebody else's position who's disabled. Don't take up the sidewalks where not only a disabled resident needs to walk, but seniors need to walk, people with strollers, and children going to and from schools.
Thank you, Mr. DeChico. And, there's a lot to be said about the, following the ADA compliance. And it's very black and white, but for some residents, obviously, it's not black and white, because there's been ways that have been done for many, many years. So it's going to take a lot of time to get adjusted to. And us city councilors, we take a lot of that grief, because people have parked in their sidewalks for so long, or they stick out of their driveway, and we understand. But so it'll be a little bit of give and take, but at the end of the day, it's very black and white. So appreciate your clarification on these matters, Mr. DeChico.
Thank you.
All in favor? Motion approved.
Calendar item number 14, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky, that the mayor request the superintendent of public works and the director of parking to appear before the public works subcommittee to discuss the new resident parking regulations.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we've been talking about this for over a year now, and I guess the Traffic Commission is ready to implement in the next several months. So I think it's a good time to bring the Superintendent of Public Works up, who was also the chairman of the Traffic Commission, and explain to us the timing, what's going to happen, the signage that's going to be put up, and what's going to happen with it in the future. I know it's been a big issue to everybody, and I would hope that everybody would get a good understanding of what's happening. So I do have a Public Works scheduled meeting for the first Monday in February, that'll come up, and along with one other item, which I didn't tell the clerk yet, but we'll talk about that as we move along. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to speak? And this will, if not, this will be sent to Public Works Subcommittee on the 10th? 10th at 5 p.m. It's approved.
Calendar item number 15, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky, that the mayor request the superintendent of public works to appear before the Public Works Subcommittee to discuss the status of the new DPW facility.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you again, Mr. President. Mr. President, as you can see, I'm allowing my subcommittee to do the work and let the folks at home find out what's going on, and whatever councilors want to come to the subcommittee other than the subcommittee members. But again, this is a major, major issue in the city, and we're going to be spending $20 million about on a new facility that, our employees need to work out of. You know, their quality of work life has not been the greatest over the years, and we've made that possibility so far. So I figured my March meeting would be that particular item to come up for Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. And this will also be referred to the February 10th subcommittee. March, the first meeting of March. Okay.
This one? Okay.
And we all are very excited to discuss that topic. All in favor? Approved.
Calendar item number 16, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky, that the mayor request the Traffic Commission to establish a new regulation prohibiting the parking of motor vehicles within 10 feet of a crosswalk.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I happened to be on North Shore Road the other day, and I noticed there's a crosswalk near Wonderland Marketplace on North Shore Road, and the vehicles were parked right up to the lines of a crosswalk. And there's no way that somebody could poke their head out of that if somebody was coming and not get hit. So I checked with Sergeant Janino, and he tells me there is no limit. It's line to line on the crosswalk on parking. So it did say that the cities can make their own rules. So I'm asking that the Traffic Commission include in the Revere ordinances that there be no parking of a motor vehicle on either side of a crosswalk. Now, within 10 feet. Now, I did realize today that some crosswalks are at intersections. So there is a 20-foot rule, state rule, whether the signs or not, of parking. So that would kind of be voided. You know, that wouldn't be part of the issue. It would only be in areas between intersections. So I figured that, and a lot of these people that are parked at this location that I saw, people are commuters coming from out of town and taking advantage of every inch they can on our streets. So we will have the, hopefully they'll pass the Traffic Commission, and we'll be able to have our parking regulators tag as necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Rotundo.
I'd just warn that once you do that, and I was just speaking to Councilor Powers, you're probably going to lose hundreds of parking spaces throughout the city. Because Joanne's, nodding her head, but you're going to lose hundreds of parking spaces. And I live down in that area. Half of them are actually residents that live in the area that don't have parking on Kimball or don't have parking down on North Shore Road, because you've got people that have handicapped spaces on North Shore Road, but also have parking driveways. So, I mean, unless right on the corner of Kimball Road and North Shore Road, there's a person who has a driveway that also has the handicap parking. So you can't have it both ways. The issue is that when you take up spaces that you would normally have for the people that live in the area, and you put in a handicap parking space when the person has a driveway, that's a problem. You've got that in 3 or 4 areas in the city where that it's a redundancy.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would just like to see some more information in subcommittee about what other surrounding cities and towns are doing. So I'd be interested to see if it's up to the city. Is Boston doing it? Is, Saugus, Chelsea, Winthrop, all of our abutting communities? 10 feet to me sounds a little aggressive. I understand, intersections are already covered, but that's on a small side street, that's a big piece of the street. So I would just be interested to see what other people are doing. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Gonasso.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is obviously going to Traffic Commission. And when it goes to the Traffic Commission, we pretty much are at their request. And so whatever they deem necessary, they do. I think that we should put this into a subcommittee that Councilor Novoselsky chairs and review how many spaces, and in fact, this would be removed from our community, because we are in a traffic crunch right now. I do think that in March, when finally, Mr. President, that resident parking throughout the entire city takes place, quite a bit of our concerns are going to be addressed. And as was mentioned, that some of those people, those folks that use our streets and sidewalks to park on to go to, take the T and go to Boston, that's no longer going to happen, pretty much, because again, it doesn't satisfy the needs of what we really want in our community, or need. But I think as we go forward, we modify what we agreed upon, and then I think we have to address the working hours for, in certain areas, particularly the people who do take advantage of our community by parking their vehicles there all day in front of someone's home, jumping on the T and then going to work. That's so unfair, and so it's an injustice to our community. So with all these things in place that are coming up in traffic, I think that this will be something that we're looking forward to. So if the Vice President would wish to have it put in a subcommittee that we can debate about it further before it goes to traffic. Because once it goes to traffic, they make a determination, yes, no, and goodbye, and it's over. So I would like the further review of this. Thank you, Mr. President.
Ralph DeChico, Revere Commission on Disabilities. To your point, Councilor Rotundo, since I've been in charge of the Commission on Disabilities, I can assure you, I'm the Gestapo. Anybody that has driveways no longer, that's handicap accessible, no longer gets a handicap sign, and I've been asking anybody who knows to send me information, and you have that addresses, please check Title 10 of the city ordinances and see if they're on there, because what was done in the past is somebody would put up a handicap sign for somebody who knew somebody, and that's why a lot of them are up there, and I've been trying to clean up, and as soon as the weather breaks, me and Sergeant Janino are going to be going and doing a clean sweep of the city to get a lot of the handicap signs that are not supposed to be up there removed.
So part of what I wanted to iterate was that within this guideline that was proposed, the handicap parking will actually be removed as well.
Yeah.
Because of the crosswalk in which it sits on.
Yeah, because the handicap spot is 18 feet, and it starts from the sign.
Right, so at
for the front of the sign to the back.
At the corner of Kimball and North Shore Road, there is a handicap parking space there. If we implement this, you will have to put that person back 10 feet. They will go into the other person's, driveway per se. You'd knock them out.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah,
And
but I just wanted to clarify though, if any signs have been put up that if they have a driveway that it's handicap accessible, there's criteria.
Yeah.
So they're not, but if it's, like, keep telling everybody, if they know them, they have to let me know, because we're doing a clean sweep on that. I know this is off the base, but I've been wanting to come to the council for another motion because this has to do with parking in the city, and there are cities and towns, especially near the train stations, where we do have some handicap signs, such as off of Shirley Ave. I would like to see the councils possibly do a motion that we make those handicap signs 2-hour parking, because we have a lot of out-of-town people who have somebody's placard, and they're parking it at that sign, and they're going into Boston, they're going to the airport and leaving their cars there, and it can legally be done if the city council makes an ordinance to the traffic commission and see if we have any handicap signs near any of our public railways, especially near the post office here, where the bus routes, if we can implement the 2-hour parking on those handicap signs. So if any councilor wants to take that on, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. DeChico. Councilor Rotundo.
Again, this goes back to the issue of why don't we have citywide, parking? I mean, we need to have residential parking, and we can do it.
But anybody with handicap parking, resident parking does not count. They can park, yeah.
Through the chair, please. Councilor Rotundo, Mr. DeChico.
That's
I'm
unfortunate.
talking about two different things. So,
Yeah.
I'm just saying a lot of these issues should be solved with resident parking. Period.
Correct. And just to clean this all up, the bids are out, and this is supposed to be implemented sometime in March or April 1st. I know it's been taking some time, but the residential parking, separate issue. This issue that Councilor Novoselsky has brought up, it looks like we reached a nice compromise via Councilor Ganasso that we would bring this to the February Public Works Subcommittee on the February 10th and discuss it further so that we can debate it a little bit more and then put it in front of the Traffic Commission. And as far as your motion, or your wishful motion, that'll be something that one of the councilors would be happy to probably take up for the next.
Thank you. And just also that anybody who comes out of city, we have to add something to it, because if they have a handicap sign and they're not a resident, they can park at a handicap sign. So that's something that I've been trying to get across, but something that we should do.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr.
Chico.
President.
So on your motion, Council Novoselsky,
If I may,
you may.
thank you. I've never seen anything get blown out of proportion all my life. Well, actually, I have, but, this does not include, deal with people parked near the corners or crosswalks at the corners, because there's a 20-foot rule anyway. And if someone would think that someone's safety is more important than a parking space, I have a problem. When someone's going to get hit by a car because they can't see them, I have a problem. And, I know handicap parking is, out of control sometimes. And Ralph is doing a great job at the disabilities with that and trying to make sure everything's done right. But I'm just talking about crosswalks away from intersections. That's the main thing, and, when it's in the middle of a roadway, and like I said, when you go down on North Shore Road at this particular location, there isn't an intersection within a half a mile of this particular crosswalk. And, if someone wants to do a survey, see how many are in like this situation, not counting corners, that's not what we're talking about. Down near the Rotary, down near the Caravan, that crosswalk coming out of, so
Well, I think
that was one of my targets, and I'm sure there's others, but that's the type of scenario we're looking at.
Thank you,
Not other stuff that was brought up today. And
Thank you.
yes, we're going to have it in the February meeting.
Thank you, Councilor. So I would like to refer this to February 10th Subcommittee. Thank you.
No further business, Council.
With that being said, motion to adjourn. Have a great night. Thank you.